All right. Got a lot to say about this film, but at the same time, I'll be rolling, sorry.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Oz Culture Podcast. How's it going, Denise?
It's going well, Michael. Thank you for having me on again for
No problem.
millionth time.
So, Turning Red, the plot involves a Cantonese girl who's just turned 13 and is now becoming a woman, blossoming into womanhood. And as you do when you become a woman, you also turn into a giant red panda.
Can confirm.
She transforms pretty much whenever strong emotions become apparent in her body. How'd you feel going into this movie, Denise?
It's really interesting, actually, because I'd only seen the trailers, and so I didn't know what else to expect. Like, I thought that the whole panda thing was just a complete metaphor, that maybe it's all in her mind, all in her head. So as the...
Yeah, you thought Pixar was going all Fight Club, eh?
Maybe a little bit. As the plot kind of progressed, I was like, oh, okay, this is really happening. And that's where it got really, I think, interesting in terms of how it got really, I guess, pushed the boundaries of imagination in the whole supernatural kind of stuff. What about you?
I had no idea about it because I honestly didn't come across any marketing material. You actually messaged me and you were like, have you seen Turning Red? What the hell is Turning Red? It looked to me like just a family-friendly, like, what happens when this little kid becomes a giant red panda? But the movie had a lot of heart. I wasn't too sure how much I would relate with the movie because, like, looking at it from the trailer and stuff, I was thinking to myself, the main character is a 13-year-old girl. Her whole life is wanting to see a boy band. It's dealing with, certain mythology that I'm not aware of, or I just wasn't sure whether this movie would really resonate with me. And some reviewers out there, white adult males, have even said, they're like, you know what, man, the movie doesn't work for me. And that's fair, they're not like the specific audience of it. I personally, though, once I started watching the movie, felt like none of that shit mattered at all. I've had a great time with this movie.
Coming out of the film, I came out of it with a really kind of personal lens, having watched it the way I did, and just knowing the way I've grown up and what that was like, because I feel like the film is set during the time that we would have pretty much been growing up at that age as well.
Yeah, the film's set in 2002.
Yeah, like you mentioned, there are a lot of people that also didn't relate to the film, which I can understand because it is quite specific in the experience it tells. But then it also made me think there are plenty of films out there though that are based on a specific experience, but people can still empathize with the human quality of it. So then it makes me wonder if there is possibly still something missing then in how they executed this story.
This isn't really a spoiler. I think it's quite obvious to people. The red panda represents, puberty. It's not subtle at all throughout the movie what this represents, the panda. I felt like the panda can represent other things. The panda represents growth. It represents change, transformation. It can represent anxiety or depression. I think Pixar movies are really good at appealing to such a wide audience regardless. Having said that, this film will definitely connect deeply to young women, and I'm sure you can attest to that, Denise, being a young woman.
Still, sort of, somewhat.
Currently, Turning Red is at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 75% audience score. So it seems like the critics are enjoying it more than the audience. It's always one or the other. I feel like it's never both on the same page. Maybe it is a question of the parents complaining, I feel like it's telling my child this or that.
A lot of the controversy surrounding the film has been some parents who have felt that scenes like drawing the inappropriate pictures under her bed and stuff was too adult or inappropriate, when it's
she was drawing him as a mermaid, for God's sake.
Exactly.
And him kissing her. It's not like Mei was drawing dicks or something. What was the controversy? I think that for some parents, they don't want to admit that your child is going to burst with, wanting to explore themselves as an individual, wanting to explore the world, and you can't keep them contained in a box. And I think that sometimes the child is actually the smartest person in the room because the adult doesn't want to put things like their own pride away or ego. And sometimes kids can cut through all that because they haven't developed as much of an ego. They don't have that. That's one of the things I felt watching the movie was quite a poignant message, is that sometimes the kid actually knows better and the parent wants to act like, oh, I'm the parent, I'm the adult, I know what's best. But not always, because you're always looking at it from a parent's perspective and not from the child's perspective, and forgetting that you were once a child. That was a big rant. I don't even have kids. A lot of people are probably going to be like, what the fuck do you know? You don't even have kids. Anyway, let's get into what we liked about the film. I don't know why some people don't like it, but I love the animation style. I think this is a gorgeous film. Visually, the colors are so vibrant, and the film reminded me of movies like Into the Spider-Verse, which I love that unique style. It's like, it's a little bit different. It's not exactly how all the other Pixar films look, but it also has a hint of like anime.
It was interesting because I was reading up some articles, and I think the director, she got a lot of influence from different animes.
Like that fast-paced style, and emotions are very like over the top, but it also does a really good job of like establishing Mei-lin's like her anxiety, getting us into her perspective, into her world, how she's seeing and feeling things. Because especially the circumstances of what happened to her, for us as adults now, it's like, oh, it doesn't seem that big of a deal. But to her, as a young 13-year-old, it really is like the end of the world. The other thing I really like about the movie is I like the film Teen Wolf. And this movie is pretty much Teen Wolf if Teen Wolf was actually funny. Teen Wolf was like for male puberty. Now this is for the female. Because the film actually borrows a lot story-wise from a movie like Teen Wolf. It's just in the later half that's different. The other thing that's really good, and you can speak more about this, Denise,
yeah,
but I feel like this film did a good job of normalizing things like puberty and periods and all the stuff that women go through in that department.
It's kind of interesting, the excitement that they showed the mother have, like, oh, it's time, I've got all the goods.
Ibuprofen, vitamin B, a hot water bottle, and pads.
Kind of period product there is. I thought that was hilarious. It was interesting to see how Mei-lin would undergo so much internal conflict with, what she thinks she should do versus what she wanted to do.
I could feel a lot of pain for Mei-lin. I felt a lot of sympathy for the character.
I think that whole thing of bottling up your emotions, especially when they're so powerful at that time of growing up at that age, it's like, I feel like, when they showed her attack that young boy at his birthday party, I was like, oh my God, like my heart, like, you can tell, like she makes a lot of like mistakes in the film, which I think is good to show, because, our hero has to learn things along the way.
Yeah.
And I think in that, there's a lesson in that we shouldn't have our kids feel that they need to bottle everything up, because it's going to come out in some way that is going to be either, damaging for themselves or for other people.
You wouldn't think a Pixar movie would be so intense, but I had some moments, man, where I was like, damn, this is some deep shit.
I think part of it's because they open you up with the comedy. And so when they hit you with like the parts with the heart in it, it just like gut punches you.
I honestly did laugh a lot at this movie. That's another thing I really enjoyed about the movie. And it's hard for me as well. Like, I don't usually laugh at Disney, like Pixar movies. But this movie actually did make me laugh many times, just because of the absurdity, the over-the-top emotional expressions on some of the characters. Mei-lin's bloody friends, fucking one of her friends that just is so aggressive and angry all the time.
Yeah, I know,
I just kept pissing myself laughing at her. I think for me, a big thing about the film is it nails the character dynamic between Mei-lin and her mother. It's more than just the typical overbearing mother, but there are, there's love there, there's layers to their relationship, I feel, because essentially if you didn't nail that relationship between the mother and daughter, this film would have nothing.
I love my mom so much, but I'd be lying if I said we had like this really perfect relationship growing up. And so I think seeing a complex relationship between a mother and daughter on screen like that, it just felt like that was why I felt so represented. Like, especially in an Asian dynamic, like you have such a duty to family, duty to parents in the culture, that when, you don't see eye to eye with them, it's, It's so heart-wrenching.
All right, let's get into what we didn't like. What didn't you like, Denise?
The mother, it would have been interesting if they were to explore it a bit more in a nuanced way, seeing a bit more of, I guess, her experience with the grandmother. Like maybe some more flashback scenes. That would have been interesting.
I did like the way they were like kind of dealing with the generational trauma.
Yeah.
It's your mother.
I'm not here.
Like when they show her mother as a young child. I wanted to see more of that. I really liked that. I thought they were about to hit on something really deep and profound, but it didn't really happen.
Yeah,
And
like
it was a shame.
It's like touched on.
Once I realized the movie was set in 2002, I felt like it was going to be used for like cheap gags. And to a degree, I mean, like, you know, you got the brick phones and like the Tamagotchis and you're kind of like sighing and rolling your eyes like, oh my God. I just didn't feel like it was worth setting it in that time. I just don't think that there was a lot of purpose behind that decision.
Yeah, cause it's interesting you bring that up because I feel that setting it in that time, it felt so more like specific to people our age because we were that like around that age at that time, which then begs the question, why is it a children's film when we're the ones relating to it the most?
Yeah.
You know, in a way.
The kids now are going to have no idea what the hell any of that is. And they're going to be asking their parents 10 million questions about what the hell is that? Why does a phone look like that? I feel like most of the time when movies are set in a specific time frame, it's for the story to happen a certain way. But this story could totally unfold nowadays.
Yeah, it really could.
Boy bands still exist.
Yes. TikTokers.
Not a huge deal, but I'm just wondering the whole time, like, yeah, but why? Anyway, the film has low stakes, I feel. The characters' big dilemma is, do I go to the concert or do I do the ritual that's going to rid me of being a giant panda forever?
It felt more like, for me anyway, the stakes were more identity based rather than life or death, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a good point. For a 13-year-old girl, I'm sure that it would feel high stakes.
Yeah.
Being like, I have to see the boy band. Like, I suppose us as kids, like, there are a lot of things that we think were high stakes as kids that obviously now looking back at, we're like, well, you know, that was stupid. Why did I care so much about that? So anyway, yes, that is our show. Something different for you guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. And if you like the show, give us a subscribe, like the video, or if you're listening to us on Spotify, leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you for joining us, Denise.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
And good night.